A beautiful day for science. And looking at this, we already see in 3007 beautiful display of some of the plasma that's been ejected from the CME. This is just showing on 193 angstroms. Keep in mind these images are about 10 to 15 minutes behind real time, and the X-ray flux shows approximately real time. That's due to the processing and downloading of the images from the satellite in space and then uploading it onto the database, SDO database. Here we go, taking another look. We see a lot of movement. It's not as easy to see the discrepancy between the loops and the plasma that's being ejected on this one, though. And just to recap, this was an X-1.52 solar flare at 1355 Zulu, or UTC. And this happened at region 3006. Simultaneously, 3004 was experiencing a lot of high C-class flares on its side, playing decoy. You can see a little bit more from the after the effects. Still some flaring activity. It takes a while to progress downward. And we can see a little bit of motion here as well from these loops on this. Can't see as much as any CME activity, as this is not the right angstrom to view that as clearly. But nonetheless, I can guarantee there's something going on with the plasma movement. Although you can see here a nice beautiful distinction of some hotter plasma not in connectivity, or not in connection of any loops. In other words, possibly the CME. That's beautiful. Even though it's very faint, it still stands out. And here we go with angstrom 171. And we can see again some distinction of motion, but mostly more than what that is. We can see there's still a lot of crossing of loops in angstrom, or in region 3007. And some interesting swaying of these loops from that impact from the flare. Nice little design, as it were. Zoom in here, get a better detail of some of these reconfigurations of loops. And we can see here it is still reconfiguring and does not look near done. We got some loops that are reconfiguring in different ways as well, which will probably end up flaring again. This will be probably a pretty prolonged event. And this is not the X-class area. This is 3007. Now, to the X-class. And this one's got... It's too early to tell all that's happening here. It's still flaring quite intensely. And in order to see all that's going on, it's going to require a little bit to pass. But you can still see, in looking at this, where's my little man? There he is. You can see a lot of loops being forced and displaced during this event. It's there's some free plasma there too that just made it out of one of the loops. Nice. And apparently the connection's gone. One sec. It appears that the SDO satellite has gone offline, or the database is offline rather, not the satellite itself. So we'll pull up a different satellite, and it appears that we're having another peak. It's going up again on the X-ray flux. So let's see if we can get the GO satellite in here. Unfortunately, I do not have a higher resolution for the GO satellite currently. So let's zoom out. Now it's pretty zoomed in there. All right. So looking at the GO satellite, we can see the C-class flares over at 3006. Where's my little man? Where's my little pointer man? I lost my pointer man. There he is. All right. At 3006, we can see some of the C-class flares that are occurring. Simultaneously, an X-class flare occurs at 3006. And there it is. We're getting actually an incline at the moment, Ken. It's just had a small M-class and a continuation. And this is because two regions are actually flaring, so maybe 3006 might be picking up again, or there may be a secondary event at 3007. Just before the the SDO feed got cut, we could see a CME already coming out of 3007, mostly with a southern direction. Did not look like it had a high spread, so I would not assume that that is something we have to be concerned about too much. It's too early to say about anything for a CME on 3006 with the X class. They're still getting the imagery from the X class itself. Coronal mass ejection would occur with post activity. It could cause steering, but you won't be able to see it as clearly typically until post. And looking at Angstrom 131, we can see a little more clearly the hot points. And this is going to show us the flares a little better than 171 was showing, which was showing the loops being swayed and broken and reconfigured. Here we got a nice presentation, and you can see a little bit with this one, with Angstrom 131. So it appears it is a lot of material, but it's got a very southern push. So very unlikely that's going to be an issue for Earth. Of course, that's a preliminary. It may change with more information and a little better analysis with further data. Meanwhile, the X class here. And there definitely is some secondary effects. I don't think this is updated as much as I think it should be. That or that M class might be just this event right here. We have another increase. Yeah, we got another increase. It's let's zoom in to see exactly what's going on here. So we have a C8, C9, then it drops again. So it didn't quite make it to an M there, and it's increasing again. And this time a C, no, made it to an M. So we had a C9 point. That's that climb. There's one right before it. Oh, well, it seems like a constant progression, so maybe not. So yeah, it's got an M class slowly climbing right now. So post the X, we have a current ongoing climb on the X-ray flux for a secondary event. Most likely what we're seeing there on the GOES on that 3006. This one right here. Look at that lovely spot. Yeah, so I would say that probably we're going to see this flare up, these loops inner area. And the reason this area has not been having a lot of impact, now we're back into R1. One of the reasons we have not been seeing a lot of impact from this region is not because the potential isn't there, but because it's been elongating, and that's stretching out the loops so that they're not running out of space. So as they grow or they expand, they still have space, because as we look at that region, it's getting, it's getting longer, and that's due to the rotation of the sun and the way it rotates. And that's how the center of the sun, eventually there we go, rotates faster, and it slows down as you go to the further south and the further north. So the equator is the fastest rotation. And due to that, when you look at how this region is designed, this upper portion is rotating faster than the southern. And that's been elongating that region, so it has not had a lot of events. However, it seems that it is now catching up, and so we might be seeing more and more activity from this, depending. And I've been expecting activity from 3007 due to the way the loops were designed. A lot of crossing loops, a lot of overlapping, and it was just, it's like a ticking time bomb kind of thing going on over there. I'm keeping a tab on the SDO satellite for when it, or database rather, for when it comes back up. Fortunately, we got all the images of the X class itself, during, that is, and up to. The M class and whatnot we'll have to get post. Oh, and look at that. SDO satellite's back. Alright, now we can get some close-ups. Alright, as we look at the 3007, we can see a lot of plasma movement. Loops are, yeah, they're still very crossed. This is going to be ongoing. 3007. This area to the north was already being reconfigured, already went through a lot of stuff, but it does seem that it's not being impacted as much, but there's some loops that cross right into this that are actually shifting the way they are swaying. I'm seeing a little more leaning upward almost. And then, of course, over here we've got loops going in many different directions, it looks like, and flaring ongoing. But makes me curious is if this, because we see flaring along this entire line here. That's solar flaring there from the loops, and that ties in to what's going on over here. So I'm wondering how much impact this area 3006 had on 3007 to cause that. So it may be that the initial event, which was actually at 3006, may have instigated the 3007 and the X class, of course, that came from 3006. All right, there we go. We're starting to see a nice amount of plasma there. It's a good pooling. It's nice. Exactly, Sydney. It might have been they took the feed down, uh, telling the satellite to stop transmitting just for protection. And we were up to an R3, so it might be like a pre-programmed thing. And then once it was safe, and let's look at my favorite angstrom on looking at plasma. Oh, maybe not. Uh-oh. All right, let's pull back goes up again. Oh, never mind. Here we go. Here we go. Finally loaded. It's always good to have backups just in case. Yeah, that is definitely plasma movement. Doesn't look like a lot expelled, but this is a head-on view, so as that cooler plasma comes from the surface, it can sometimes be drowned out by the hotter plasma behind it. So we may not be able to see the CME if there is one heading straight at us. Uh, Typically, I would look for a much darker spot, but sometimes, especially with that X-class flare and the ongoing M-class flare, that that can blind out some of the CME that if it is one there. Yeah. It appears that SDO is also being pulled heavy, so that it might take a little time to load each image to image. I don't think it's down again. I think they took it down, or it automatically went down during the R3 transition when we had the X class, probably to protect the satellite. Loading Angstrom 335 to look at a little more of that outer plasma area, a little more of the corona, and to see exactly how much is impacted in the flow of that, and also because we'll see a little brighter transition area where there's the hotter plasma. It's kind of a telltale sign of where, if a CME is occurring, where it's at, based upon what's happening behind it in the background as well. And so again, as we can see, good example is looking at 3007, we can see the little bit of a shine here. And we already know there's a small CME heading this way. And this is a little bit of a telltale sign. It does not give us the full detail of what's going on, but it gives us, knowing the other angstroms we looked at, gives us a little more information. And then looking here, there is definitely some hot plasma movement. We can see here the loops that are very, very hot right now. And I believe this is where that M-class rise is at. Still early days. Can't really tell if there's a CME. Guess it's going to take a little more, and that's all right. Going back to Angstrom 131, which shows more of the hot flaring regions. It focuses on the flares themselves, so it'll be the bright spots. And it doesn't oversaturate, so it shows us exactly where that flaring is, the epicenter is for that flare. And as I said earlier, it takes a little bit of time for these images to load because SDO's database is being swamped right now with queries. Now pull up the Go satellite while we wait. All right, here's a excessively zoomed in shot because GOES does not have as high as resolution with their quick data transfer. So let me zoom out. There we go. That's much better. So we can see here on the GOES satellite, on angstrom 284 for GOES. This color is 335 for the SDO, so they don't keep the same color for the angstroms as they go across. Each one has their own set. But angstrom 284 here shows us a good view of that corona and flaring. Of course, the actual hot spots are a little more whited out, washed out, a little harder to see the detail, but definitely shows us where the, if you look closely at these loops, shows us where the activity is impacting. If you watch, these loops right here expand outward, right there, and become a little more detailed. And they're becoming detailed because they're spreading out. You're starting to see a little more of the gaps between the loops when that flare happens, causing that motion. All right, and looking at angstrom 304, in which they do share the same color this time. This is the same color that SDO uses for 304 angstroms. And again, we can see, looking at this southern portion, how that X class, interesting, there's actually a filament movement that occurs just before that event happens. If you look right here, you'll see this come flying up here. And there's a chance a thing like that could actually impact a region. Way I would explain it is imagine a pool. You have a pool that's being filled with water, and you have two live wires on the edge. And as that water climbs up and up and up, if it reaches a certain level, it's going to cause those two wires to flare up. It's going to cause them to spark. And it could very well be that this provided enough plasma to increase the level of plasma to cause those flares to become destabilized. So seeing this come in, that might have been a contributor to this. Yeah, that is a very prolonged R1, isn't it? We are still slightly rising. Now, a lot of this has to do, again, with the elongation that's been going on with region 300. I think I actually see the CME on there. Yeah. The angstrom 3006 has been elongating due to that rotation differential between the equator and the north and south of the sun. And because of that, it's been keeping the activity from occurring, any flaring. So it's just been growing and growing and growing. And I think that because of that, it had a lot of potential that was not being released. And this destabilized one particular spot, which then caused a chain reaction to slowly destabilize everything else, cascading down all that plasma from the larger event, causing everything else to have issues as well. Just as well, don't ignore 3007 because it is also flaring. And if you look here on the south end, I think we're starting to see some of that plasma a little more clearly. And we have SDO's 131 angstrom. Finally loaded. Alright, and looking at that, because we have more detail, I can zoom in and we can see that indeed the M-class flaring region is this right here. Which, this was the X-class, and as I said earlier, there was a this elongation and the loops kept growing. Well, when the X-class occurred, it caused a disturbance, and now you're seeing that transition of energy impacting more and more of the loops to the outer side. So this could become a chain reaction causing more. As well, we have flaring here. This is doesn't appear to be as significant, so it's probably just a low C or a mid C maybe. But don't take my word for it. No way to know for sure. Because the way the X-ray flux is measured is one measurement for the entire sun. It looks at the sun, and whatever's peaking is what it shows. And the current peak is still 3006. And take note again, this is still showing very hot, this little line here. And what this is an area where this connects all the way over to where this activity is occurring on 3006. This is the connection, part of it, because there's also a connection here. But this is the connection that appears to be showing some transfer of energy, possibly by these solar flares that are occurring. On that note, let's test our luck and see if we can load the most recent Angstrom 171. And while we wait for that to load, let's load GOES again. In fact, let's look at GOES. Let's look at Angstrom. Oh, never mind. We'll look at you in a moment, GOES. You're okay. Alright, here we go. So looking at this, we can see there is a lot of space here now in these under areas that they used to be very crowded. I wouldn't say so much as crowded as just more filled, and there's a lot more space now. And that's due to these events that are ongoing. Huh. And a very beautiful flare showing nicely there. That might be the M class. It's really hard to tell at this point. Yeah, I would say this is probably the M class then, because this appears to be out flaring, as it were, that other side. So it does appear that 3007 is the instigator of this M class flare. As you see, it's a lot of guesswork, looking for the fine details to decide, what's showing the best information of which area is doing what. And with the proper analysis, looking at it, after all, it's easy to find. But yeah, so this right here has been reconfiguring, and there's a lot more space showing, a lot of hotter activity on the outside. But in general, appears to have, we probably should look at Angstrom 193. There it goes. All right, so 193. Yeah, there it is. Okay, so showing on 193 better than 171 are the loops that I was looking for. And this is the reconfiguration loops. This is the area that's being readjusted or being adjusted by those flares. And you can see these loops as they have a lot more space between them now, as it were. But over here has not been touched as much. You can see those loops are very, very organized, actually. Very organized. The smaller loops seem to have their own pattern and where they go. Not much crossing at all with it, actually. So it's going here to here. These are going all the way around and they're above. Yeah, it's a very organized area. And that's what kept it from flaring up for so long. But it does appear that the northern portion is what indeed was impacted. And here's our current continuation of M-class flare. And this is where I actually expected activity. I've been expecting it for a while. And we can see the actual plasma displacement here. It's very good capture. Now, if it can interact or causes instability with this, I think it might actually escalate a little more than just that borderline M-class. Salutations, Bogdan. Yeah, it looks to me like 3007's or 3006 activity could very well be more northern in direction, and 3007's is very southern in direction. Southbound plasma. So just to recap, we have the X-1.5 at 3006, and we're having a continuation M-class flare at 3007. It does appear that it's slowly going down, though. Indeed, this is a very south pushing CME that does occur. You see it right there from 3007. Very unlikely that we're going to see a CME impact Earth from there. So I wouldn't be too concerned about that. But it is quite a beautiful event. Yeah, indeed. So originally it was a C class by 3006. Then we had the X class at 3307 rather. C class at 3007. And then we had the X class at 3007 6 rather. Oh my gosh. Oh, I'm losing it. All right. So 3007 had a C class, multiple ongoing flaring activity. And then past that, and actually during, there was an X class 1.5 at 3006. And during that, the flaring in 3007 escalated to an ongoing M class. Third time's a charm, right? And here we are. Good view of both of them. 3007, still ongoing flaring. 3006, still ongoing flaring, but not as extreme. But there's still a great amount of potential, a lot of loops, and barely any of that southern loop structure, which is still quite organized, has been touched on 3006. There's a lot of reconfiguration that's ongoing on 3007, so some of it might be flaring, I would assume. A high amount of restructuring, reconfiguring is actually occurring right now at 3007. Indeed, but keep in mind 3007 rather had a significant amount of crossing loops. I had been expecting this to go up for a while. It was a ticking time bomb, as it were. And we're actually seeing these reconfigurations ongoing right now. There's an entire flaring area ongoing right here onto the southern portions. And it's been going for a while now. Yeah, so this is a many series of flares that are occurring at 3007, rather. Jeez. Most current imagery does not show any motion to the filaments that are riding along the surface of the sun. Not just yet, anyways.